4C is going to talk about ethical concerns when we're talking about human subjects. So if we're doing an experiment, right, and we're using humans as a subject, we have to make sure that what we're doing is morally and ethically okay. We can't just do whatever we want to humans. So a general guiding principle when we're talking about human subjects is the interest of the subject must always prevail over the interests of science and society. So we can't use cruel and unusual punishment. We can't give people medicines that have ridiculous side effects. We can't do things that would harm people just because we really want to know how something would work or how this would affect them. Okay, and so we have three major things that we look at when we're doing experiments with human subjects. An institutional review board. Okay, we're going to review all the planned studies in advance, and the only purpose of the review board is not will this study give good data, not is this an interesting question, not even is this an important question to answer. The only thing that they are looking at is, are we protecting our subjects from all possible harm? Okay. When you guys do your projects, your experiments, I will be your institutional review board. I will make sure that we are not going to do anything to those other students that is going to harm them. Okay. Informed consent. All right. And those both words are important. Okay. When you ask people to be part of an experiment, they have to give informed consent, meaning they have to know ahead of time what is going to be done to them, what is going to happen in the experiment, and they have to be able to say, I'm okay with being a part of this. All right. And then confidentiality. All right. So only statistical summaries should be made public. All right. If we do an experiment, we should not publish the results with people's names attached to it or any sort of identifying information. Okay. People that are part of an experiment, that should remain confidential. Okay, and there's a difference between being confidential and anonymous. All right, confidential is a bare minimum requirement for every study. Okay, we cannot give out identifying information. All right, anonymous would mean exactly what you think it means. It means we don't know who the people are in the study. So in an anonymous experiment, even the experimenters, even the researchers don't know who the subjects are. They have no contact with them. All right. Okay, so with those three things, review boards, informed consent, and confidentiality, here are a couple different scenarios, and I want you to jot down your thoughts on whether or not these things would be considered ethical. All right, and we're going to discuss this in class, so you need to have some thoughts written down. So pause on this screen, take a look at this, and let me know what you think about these different scenarios. Would you consider them ethical? Do you need some more information to decide? What do you think? All right, and then the last thing we're going to talk about is balanced doubt in clinical trials. So what that means is we can't just decide on doing clinical trials just whenever we want, okay? Because if we have a medicine that we think works, we could have an issue with the clinical trial because we're not giving that treatment to half of the people. And so those half of the people might be sicker or even die from their disease just so that we could run our trial. All right. We also have an issue with if the medicine or our treatment doesn't work. Now we've just given half of our subjects this thing that doesn't work, and we prevented them from getting a treatment that maybe we do know works. All right. So clinical trials have a very specific set of circumstances that have to go along with it. But for our purposes in this class, we're going to just look at two things. Okay. There must be a sufficient belief that a treatment works to justify giving it to half the subjects. So we have to think this thing is going to work. All right, we can't just randomly test medicines on people without going through some steps beforehand. But there must also be a sufficient doubt that it works to justify withholding it from the placebo group. So if we absolutely know that it works already, then why would we do a clinical trial and prevent half of the people from getting this treatment? Okay? So if we knew which treatment was better, we would give it to everyone. But when we don't know, when there's some uncertainty there, and that's what we call that balanced doubt, then it is ethical to try both and compare them in a clinical trial.